Behind Hip Hop Interview Part 1.
Welcome. I'm Jermain Simpson, and I'm here with Pastor G. Craige Lewis of EX Ministries, and we are excited about some things that's about to take place. First of all, we're going to have a wonderful conversation, and then we're going to talk about a date that's coming up that you want to be in the house. But first of all, just like to say good afternoon to Pastor Lewis. How are you, sir?
Doing good, Jermain. Good.
Good. It's good to be here with you. It's my pleasure to be here with you, and to just kind of talk about the truth behind hip hop, where it's been, how did it evolve, and how far it's come, and where it's going. Yeah. So, the truth behind hip hop, what, 1999 was when the first one?
Yeah, I started doing it in 1998, actually.
1998.
1998, and it started out as I had a youth group where we were bringing kids from a high school, and we were over a youth department at a small church, and we had about 75 kids in there, and I just started showing them magazine clips and just different things, what artists were doing, and it was on Halloween. So that's why we always, we usually try to shoot, even now, Truth Behind Hip Hop around that same time, just, to commemorate it, I guess, whatever.
Right.
But it was a Halloween, and they asked me to speak to the youth that day, and I did it, and I brought, albums and different things I was showing them, and man, it had such a powerful impact that changed my life, and it changed those kids' lives, and I saw the power of God come in and just really free them from just a certain kind of bondage that music is able to do. And from then on, that had to be 1996 or 1997, but from then on, it just became a phenomenon worldwide. And a friend of mine, Herman Murray, was listening to it in his office, and he didn't know who it was. Somebody had recorded me doing it somewhere.
Wow.
And they were listening to it, and my cousin walked by and heard it and said, "Oh, that's my cousin." He said, "Your cousin?" He said, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's my cousin." And he called me, and he said, "Man, we're in here listening to your message." And I was like, "Oh, okay." He was like, "We want you to come do it." And so they invited me in to Full Gospel, and we shot part 1 in 2000, and the rest is history.
Wow. Let me ask you, did you think that it would grow and evolve as much as it did when God first gave it to you? Or did you think it would be just that one and that's it?
I thought it would be just that one. But the vision God gave me and the information He gave me was so in depth. I just felt like I would be expounding on it more as I did it.
Right.
So just kind of traveling and, and at the time, I was speaking to 50, 60 people, whatever, and, I wasn't even asking for honorariums or nothing. So, I was a struggling prophet.
Right.
That's all prophets start out struggling prophets.
But had to get it out of you.
Yeah. And I was struggling, and man, I remember I couldn't even afford a haircut or clothes for that event. They actually cut my hair and bought me clothes for the first Truth Behind Hip Hop. And I remember sitting back with Lobius Murray, and he began to speak into my life, and he began to, do the old man thing, and that's what I call it, because when older men pour into you, they pour so much value in you. That's why I love, the men I hang out with are all 10 plus years older than me, because they can just, when they speak, it just pours so much value in you, you feel valuable afterwards. And so he began to speak to me and tell me, "Brother, you're struggling now, but," he said, "man, you stay the course, don't change nothing." He said, "If you keep preaching this message, God is going to take care of you. He's going to take care of your family." And, just giving me, a wealth of information. And those things have sustained me to this day. They were that important to hear. And so, from then on, I was invited back to do 2, I think 3. Don't X Me Out 4. so we were able to do all of those, and I'm going from speaking to 50, 60 people to a 5,000 seat auditorium, which is what Full Gospel was. And so it was a blessing that church opened their doors, and me and Herman are still good friends now, and of course Apostle has passed on, but just the things that they were able to pour into me just changed my life.
Right. And because of that, you changed a lot of lives because of that ministry. And let's kind of talk about that a little bit. When we talk about the truth behind hip hop, for those first time viewers, if you will, what is the truth behind hip hop? What is that truth?
Well, the truth behind hip hop is the fact that the devil was able to create something that would last until Jesus returned, as far as a subcultural movement. So if you look at the history of subcultural movements, music is always associated with them. So Rastafarians, they have their form of music. Heavy metal, they have their form of music. Goth, they have their form of music, which is heavy metal. Bluegrass and polka, folk, not for polka, folk, bluegrass, synonymous with hippie, that kind of thing. So every subcultural movement that is anti-establishment has a music form associated with it. But none of them have been able to do anything close to what hip-hop has done. Hip-hop has changed the way an entire race sees themselves. And the truth behind hip hop is to show you really how that movement of the enemy was able to strategically take the place of the father in the home of the African American, bleed over into white, black. I mean, preached all over the world, so I've seen the Japanese, the Chinese, the UK, just wherever, Africans, wherever. They've taken on a brand new identity of a degenerate or anti-establishment movement, and it has sustained itself and lasted all of these years. When I first started doing the truth behind hip hop and showing people the truth, there wasn't much proof.
Right.
I was kind of foreshadowing, telling them what's gonna happen.
Right.
And where there was proof, I had to dig and find it, like it was hidden. But now it's in your face, and it's still going. And so I praise God that He was able to give me a vision 30 years ago, give me a message 20 plus years ago that I'm able to go back out and do now with as much relevance, even more relevance than it had when it started. And only God can do that. I couldn't plan that. I liken it to, George Lucas and the Star Wars series.
Right.
He was able to do, it was just masterful what he did. He introduced Star Wars back in the 70s when I was young. And then he let 20 years pass, came back with the first 3 episodes so that the Star Wars audience that first saw it was able to bring their kids with them, and their kids could experience it as well as those that were already fans.
Right.
And man, he's worth what, $5 billion?
At least.
That's at least. That's a masterful idea. But God was able to do something to me even greater than that, because He was able to give me foresight and speak prophetically. And then 20 years later, we're seeing everything that He spoke come to pass.
Absolutely. And that's what I want to bring out. It's even more relevant in 2022 than it was in 96, 94, because we couldn't see it, and only you saw it. So how was that experience, preaching what God is giving you? No one is seeing it but you. How did you continue on?
Man, by the power of the Holy Ghost, I tell you that, because preachers would bring me in their offices and be like, man, I don't know about that. And Doc,
right.
I don't know, and they want to support it. They want hands off, it was just kind of like, but I just tell them, I said, man, I know what God told me. He told me that goth was gonna, black music, hip hop was gonna embrace the goth culture, and they're gonna become the same thing.
Right, right.
And people just, no way, black folk ain't gonna do that. You're not gonna find black folks, doing what the punk rockers or the heavy metal, and now, man, it's all here.
It is all here, because you're absolutely right. Even the white youth embrace the culture that hip hop has brought into the world, against some of their parents' wishes and all of that. Yeah. But that culture is still very relevant in their lives. So when you see that now, did you see it then?
I saw it then. I wrote it. I wrote it in my book, The Truth Behind Hip Hop book. It's available on Amazon. You can get it on Amazon or print on demand, and it's an ebook as well. But I wrote it in the book. I wrote the vision in the book. I wrote the vision when God gave it to me. So around 91, I think, is when I wrote that vision down.
Wow.
Because I believe what Habakkuk said, write the vision, make it plain so that he that reads it runs with it. So I wanted to run with that vision, and I felt like what God had shown me I would be doing for the rest of my life. I did feel like it. Wow. I got tired of doing it, because going against the world all the time,
you naturally feel like I ain't by myself out there.
Man. I can't even explain. I thank God I got a wife that just understood. Yeah. Understood me, as a person. So she could see it in my eyes, she could hear it in my voice, and so I had that, but it was very, very hard, very, very hard. I'm going against, I remember when when I posted the first real information, I went against the MegaFest, T.D. Jakes MegaFest. Yes. And his lawyer contacted me and tried to scare me or whatever, and I started getting contacted by all kind of lawyers, and just not just with the MegaFest, but radio announcers. I remember we were driving, me and my wife, in Alexandria, I think, Virginia, and we were listening to the radio. And this was way back before, I think I had just shot part 1, and they were talking about me. Wow. On the radio. And it was 2 DJs, and they were talking about me, like, who is this guy? Who he think he is? Ain't nothing wrong with that, because I think T.D. Jakes was bringing Shaka Khan and, all them divas. And folks were just, they were talking about me, and I was like, man, what in the world? And I didn't know that it would become a message that the whole world would experience. Now, remember, there was no social media.
Absolutely. No. Internet was just kind of getting going.
Yeah. Internet was all discussion boards. Right. That's all it was. Lycros and, Black Planet and all of that. It was just, I remember it. It was just discussion boards. But all the discussion boards were talking about the truth behind hip hop. Wow. And we didn't put them on there. I was going and seeing them, and I had somebody send them to me, like, look, dude, they all talking about the truth behind hip hop. And this is when I knew that it was going to be something special in the eyes of God, because I remember seeing all those chat boards, hundreds and hundreds of them, all of them talking about it. And then I remember I went back like a few days later, and there was no mention of it anywhere. It's like somebody hit a button and erased it completely off the internet. And I said, okay, this is, Wow. So it must have got the attention of the elite or somebody. Right, you know what I mean? Sure. And but God's going to do what God's going to do. He's going to do it his way. And so here we are,
23 years.
Yeah,
23 years or so. So 1 through 13, the truth behind hip hop. So that brings us to now a review. You want to do a truth behind hip hop review. Let's kind of talk about that.
Well, the Rewind, Truth Behind Hip Hop Rewind, I went out and did it. I had been telling our church for probably the last 3 years or 4 years, before I did the Rewind, I'd been telling them I remember coming up one Sunday and telling the church, I feel like the truth behind hip hop is coming back. As I feel like God is gonna want me to do the truth behind hip hop. I said, and I was warned in the church. I was like, if that's happening, then the demons and the devils that fought against me the entire time I was doing it, they're gonna surface too.
Right. Yeah.
And so I was preparing the church. We went on a time of fasting and praying. We started our focus prayer. We started just a lot of things to where we could kind of stay focused during the time God was really preparing me to go back and do it. Then I remember I was cleaning up a room or something in my house, and I found all of the footage, the B-rolls of all of my engagements, the ones in Africa, the ones wherever I was. I just found all of this footage, and I didn't have anything to play it on. So I called our sound guy Eddie, and we was searching, trying to find something. I called Chris Black, who's been with us since the beginning, recording and stuff. He was trying to find a player, something to play it on, because it was old. I don't even know what you call it, beta, something, not beta, but something. Super or something. And we couldn't play it on anything. Right. Finally, I found a player on eBay or something. We bought the player, and I just began to watch all of those videos. And I was like, wow, I was a pretty bold dude in my heavier days. I was impressed with myself. I was like, man, I was standing up there and I was going against stuff that was actually happening during the service.
Wow.
Like one church, they were doing miming, and that was in my message I was preaching, against miming. And I got up right behind it. Y'all don't need to be doing this mime. And I was like, oh my God, how did they give me an honorarium?
Wow.
I wouldn't have wanted to give me nothing. Brother, you can't have this money. You just got up and put us all on black.
Right.
So I'm just sitting there watching it. And man, I was like, Lord, I just need that. Like I need, I'm older now, but I need that confidence. And then I did a sermon called Confidence. See, my church, well, not my church, God's church that I pastor, I get an opportunity, they get the opportunity of just experiencing life with me, because whatever God is doing with me, what I'm going through, it's going to be a sermon. And it's a sermon each week, and so I did a sermon on confidence, and they thought I was preaching it to them. It was for me, because I knew I had to go back out and face all of the opposition, face all of the hate, face all of the threats and just everything. I knew it was all coming back, and so I needed God to give me that. I prayed for that, Jermain, and God told me, you're gonna have to go through stuff to get it. And that's how He is. And so, went through a lot of different things, but God began to put the message in me again, the fire, just everything. And so I went through all of the Truth Behind Hip Hops and began to pull things out, and it all just came together and became the Rewind, and I was able to go out and do it in Raleigh, North Carolina. And man, I was shocked. 1,000+ people showed up. People from as far as California came. I mean, people from, it was very little Raleigh people there. Everyone else drove from, as far as California, Atlanta. People came from Indianapolis, different ones. We had, just all kinds of people there, and God moved. And I said, okay, if this is what you need me to do, Lord, I'll do it. And so the Rewind is here.
Right, and that lets you know that people driving that far, they're hungry for the word. Because a lot of people think the truth behind hip hop is a bunch of don't do's, can't do that. But I've shared with you, you back it up with the word. And it's the word that convicts you and draws you to God. So it's not a message of condemnation. It's a message of conviction to draw people to God.
That's all it is, and that's all I ever preach is, God's will and the word. I mean, people get touchy when you mention their music, or you deal with their music, because that's the devil. That's what the devil is. He's a musician. He's a musical being. That's his go-to. He's going to always use music. Any anti-activist kind of culture that is created has to have a music form. The music form is what drives the message of it.
Right.
And so the devil knows that, and so he wants church people bogged down with the information in the songs that the secular artists sing. And people don't know what that's doing to them. They just don't know how that's changing their lives. It's changing your life. Now look at it this way. You know, most of these guys that they're listening to are 20-year-old millionaires.
Right.
20 years old. Somebody gave them some money to promote a vile message.
Right.
So you got folks 30 years old listening to 20-year-old doctrine, 20-year-old advice. A 20-year-old's advice is what I mean. A person who hadn't even experienced life is leading your life through music. And that's what the devil wants, you know? And so people have to realize this culture is dangerous because it just disassembles the things that God wants for us, you know, and it goes against his will, his commands, all of those things. But you don't recognize it because it's masked in the music and played into you.
You're absolutely right. And if you would just, if we just read the lyrics of what we hear, you would think people would say, wow, he right. But instead of that, it's, man, he don't know what he's talking about. So what do you say about that sentiment? I mean,
it's doing what music does. It goes into the mind of a man, disturbs his conscience without his consent. So music didn't ask for permission to enter you. You know, those lyrics didn't ask for permission to enter you. And the intent of that artist didn't ask for permission to enter you. It bypassed your frontal lobe because it was played into you. And people don't realize the effect, like I said, the effect it has on them. But God does.
Yeah.
Because it changes the way you come to God. It's hard to come to God, really come to God, when you have the devil's stuff.
Right.
And we read that all through the Old Testament. You know, Achan was the best example where he hid the enemy's stuff under his tent. And Joshua started losing all the battles. And God said, hey, you know, well, Joshua tore his clothes like, God, you know, we're Israel. Like, how does Israel lose? And he said, you have sin in your camp. You have the stuff that Achan hid. What was the stuff? Stuff from the enemy. You took stuff from the enemy and hid it and kept it. And God said, you know, don't intermingle with that.
Right.
Well, that's what music does. You have the stuff of the enemy. Read the lyrics. If you were to talk the lyrics, if somebody was to come to you and just talk Cardi B's lyrics to you, you'd be offended. You'd be offended. If somebody was to call, for a woman, if a man was walked up to her and called her a B, she would be offended. But if Cardi B calls her that, she's dropping it like it's hot.
Right.
So dropping it like a thought. You know, a thought is, I just found out what
I did too, Pastor, to be honest with you, about 2 weeks ago.
We old.
Right.
It's like, drop it like a thotty. What is that? But
I know that ain't speaking in tongues, because that don't match. What is that?
No, but that's what I'm saying. So, you know, if someone was to just verbally speak those things, you know, I'll go all the way back. Chuck D and Public Enemy. If they publicly spoke the stuff that was in their songs, white folks, wouldn't know white folks be in there. But they put it to music. We hate y'all. Y'all are just crackers, and they out there just losing their minds because of the beat, because it's masked by the music, and that's the influence the enemy has. That's the only way he could influence a third of the angels to follow him out of the presence of God. He was a musical being.
Right, through music.
Yeah.
The world is influenced. The world has changed. While you think back to the 50s and 60s, people would say, well, Motown was just great. And that's because everybody was into that Motown sound and the Motown music. And it crossed cultures because of the music. So let me bring it up to current day. We want to talk about social media. And social media is, look at me, look at what I have, look at this. That's all these social media platforms are. So that definitely enhances the anti-God, what God is against message.
Yeah.
Because God is saying, no, not look at me. Let's go help them. Let's do that for them.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. But I think the worst thing about social media, back when I was doing the Truth Behind Hip Hop and different things, there was no social media, so everyone's opinion didn't count.
Right.
Back when I was growing up, people trust the preacher.
Yes.
They trust that this was a man of God,
Yes.
and what he was preaching was the truth.
Right.
And because social media has given everyone a voice, everyone the ability to thumb up or thumb down everything, people have taken that approach to the church.
Yes.
I believe that social media was created with destroying God's church in mind. I believe preachers and churches are pushed to become internet-based, internet-only based, to forsake the fellowship that God told us in Hebrews not to forsake, especially when we see the day approaching.
Yes.
He said that's the time when you definitely do not forsake gathering or fellowship and coming together and having services. But the internet knows that, and the creators of the internet knows that. So they want to just put enough on there to make people, doubt the validity of God's church altogether and stop people from actually going. When we moved over here, when we were getting ready to move here, we've been at this building for 5 years. A witches coven formed, and they formed a Facebook group with 900 and something witches.
Wow.
And their whole purpose, when we were getting ready to move here, their whole purpose, and a dude sent it to me, and I was just shocked. And he was like, yeah, you got to post this. I said, I ain't posted these witches. I never did. I didn't post it. I didn't even send it to people. I didn't send it to close people. I didn't send it to nobody, because I was like, I'm not giving them any, juice. But it was a bona fide witches coven with all those members. They located 2 North Richland Hills just to stop our church. And when I saw that, I said, okay, the devil really doesn't want church to continue. And the Lord spoke to me and said, church is his only enemy. What else? That's his only enemy. And it's his enemy because Jesus said, upon this rock I build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. He wasn't talking about our bodies. He was talking about the church, the collective body, because there's power and different things that happen when we come together that the devil is afraid of. And so his job is to isolate us all, divide and conquer. And the internet is his number one tool, because on the internet, it used to be a person get church hurt in church, they just go to another church.
Right.
You get church hurt now, they make a post.
Right.
And they want the world to see it. And they think they're talking to the members of the church they're mad at. You're talking to the world.
Right.
And you're going to be held accountable for everyone you're a stumbling block for. And God said, don't be a stumbling block.
Right.
But let me answer this, because you look like you got in your eyes. Folk gonna say, well, you post stuff about people on the internet too, Well, the only thing I post is what they've already posted.
Right.
So if one of the Clark sisters say, hey, thank you Beyonce and Jay-Z, and say it on the internet, you said it. So I'm gonna take it and show you why you shouldn't have said it. And that's totally different from me, actually trying to attack them and destroy them in their personal lives or whatever. So we have to realize that there should be a barrier, and we should use discretion when we're dealing with the internet, because the internet is not, and it never will be, church.
Right. You're absolutely right. And I like that you take that Beyonce Clark and you line it with, again, it's the word. It's not Pastor G. Craige think this. No, Pastor G. Craige said, the word said X, Y, Z. And that's what's missing from a lot of churches, I think, is the word. And that's why you'll have people driving from California to go to North Carolina, to get the word. And so, and I'm starting to feel the same way as you about social media, because even the language, and it's all subtle. Think about it. You have followers. How many followers do you have? And that's talk. And we should be followers of Christ.
That's what they taught me.
Yeah, we should be followers of Christ.
Yeah.
So, but now we're followers of people and listening to what they're saying. And before you know it, the social media becomes your pastor. Mm-hmm. Right, which is why you need to be connected to a Bible-believing, teaching church. Yeah. Because I know pastors that preach the word, you know, as yourself, they say, I don't cancel. My counseling sessions are Sunday morning and at Bible study on Tuesday. Mm-hmm. I guarantee if you come to that, you'll get what you need.
Exactly.
You kind of feel the same way?
That's the way we do it here. Mm-hmm. We just don't. I just believe that you ought to be able to get what you need here and get what you need on your own in your own word and your own word time. Now, if you leave one of those out, if you don't show up but you're in the word, you're going to be disconnected. Or if you show up but you don't get in the word, you're disconnected. You have to have them both. Right. But if you do that and plug into a fellowship, and then another beautiful thing about fellowship is, man, look at what you learn. Look at what you learn from people, the people around you. Mm-hmm. You know, most people now don't know how to raise children. They don't know how to be a wife or husband. I mean, their parents taught them how to get a job, make some money, be in charge, especially the women, be a boss, whatever. And so you come here and you see all of these families here, some 800 people here with most of them, married, children, experience different things. You can learn how to do the things that maybe you were deprived of or maybe you missed out on, in your own home.
Right, which is why you should not forsake the assembly.
That's what God said.
Back to the word.
That's the Bible.
That is the Bible. All right, so back to, and I'm enjoying this conversation, so I hope you are.
I am too.
But back to the truth behind hip hop. You did 13 of them. Which one would you say had the most impact on you personally? And why?
I almost have to say the first one, just because it's the first one.
Right.
But if somebody asked me to do one, and they said, do your favorite one, I'm going to probably do Part 8, Lords of Discord, because Lords of Discord talked about fraternities and sororities, Freemasons, and it talked about the origin of it, how it came through the confrontation of Cain and Abel, and how the bloodline trickled all the way down into the curse of Ham and the inferiority complex of the people of color at that time. And folks gonna be like, "Oh, the curse of Ham! You preaching that Southern Baptist stuff?" That ain't what I said. I said at that time, I believe they were all dark skinned, everybody, back then. But then the Egyptians and how some of them even left Egypt and went with the children of Israel. People don't know that, but they were there with them, and that it's like that bloodline followed God's path for his people. That better than bloodline, that elite bloodline just continued to walk behind God's people all the way to now. Even in Freemason ceremonies and stuff, they have a Bible.
They do.
Or even in, just all of these different cult groups, they somehow, like the witches, they want to attach themselves to ministry, to church or whatever, so that they can constantly try to infiltrate. So that's what that video talks about. And it talks about how music does that, frequencies do it, and how the devil uses frequencies and all that. So that was the deepest one to me. It was powerful to me. God began to speak that one, and I couldn't type fast enough to take the notes for it. And man, it was just a mind-blowing experience for me, and I was just blessed extremely by it. So I would say that's my favorite. But you know what? Let me say this.
All right.
But I guess my favorite video of all times that I have shot is not A Truth Behind Hip Hop.
Okay.
It's Era Man 4, Destination Entropy. And I just did this last year.
Right.
That was a good one.
Yeah, it was. It was.
I liked that one. I liked it because of the relevance. And how it really helped people see what was going on, even with the pandemic and everything. So that's my favorite of all times. I love that message. So
Well, that's good. I was there, and I'm telling you, get the DVD if you don't have it.
Yeah,
so,
that was a good one.
so when we talk about the truth behind Hip Hop Rewind, are we going to touch 1 through 13? Will there be additional information that you're going to share that God has given you to share with the body?
Yeah, all of that. It's 1 through 13, but it's all brought up to date with, the proof.
Right.
And
that's what I was about to say. Because now it's like, this is what I was saying then. Now, this is what you're seeing.
Yeah, and I've done it twice, and both times was totally different. So probably every time I do it, it's going to be different. So come October 28th, I don't know what it's going to look like, but it is touching 1 through 13, but it's kind of bringing it up to date.
Right. Well, I'm excited about it. I can't wait for it, and I know the people can't. I know you can't wait for it. I know you're excited, and I know God is yet speaking, and I know it's going to truly be an experience. And we're just glad to be here with you at the beautiful Adamant Believers Council's church, where they adamantly believe. And Pastor G. Craige Lewis is here, and we're talking about the truth behind Hip Hop Rewind. And we definitely want to see you on October the 28th. October 28th, that's it.
Doors open at 6 o'clock, Waxahachie, at this address.
At the address below.
Yeah, that on the address you see on the screen. Yeah.
How do we do it? The address here or the address here, whichever way.
She can put it anywhere.
Right. All right, so as we prepare to experience it though, I just want to ask you one more quick question, because truly I call you a prophet. I say it joking, but I really mean it, because I know we see the proof. I mean, we see the proof. And I was watching an award show a few years ago. This may have been the last time I watched it, the Grammy Awards. And they had Beyonce on there. And I think we've talked about this before. And she had the gold crown, and it was dark, and the music was just really slow. And it got my attention because it just felt uneasy. It's like, okay, now what song is this? What music is this? And it was a seance. It felt like a seance. And we talked about this. And at that point, which I was already a believer in what Pastor Lewis talked about, but at that point I was like, wow, this is real. She is performing a seance in front of these people.
It was a ritual. She was doing the Oshan ritual, which is from the Yoruba tribe in Nigeria, and they are water spirits and womb goddesses, and she was pregnant, and so she was doing a ritual, basically sacrificing the unborn child to the water goddess Mami Wata, and that's what they do. Oshan is a goddess in the Yoruba religion. And that's what she brought, and that's what Black Lives Matter brought even to our country. That's why they had to do that ritual in order to, start the end time kind of clock or timeline, so to speak, as far as the last things happening. The whole one world government, the new world order, the mark of the beast, the transhumanization, turning us into robots and cyborgs. And so all of those things, before that vow was unleashed, the evil vow of the enemy, there had to be ceremonies and rituals, and that was one of them. And then Black Lives Matter, they were in the streets doing it with Antifa. Right. They were sacrificing and doing rituals, and one of them even did an entire Yoruba ritual, conjuring up Yoruba spirits, and these spirits attack our families and destroy our families. I mean, look at Black Lives Matter. It's 3 lesbian witches created that. I mean, they're angry at family. Right. And so that's what the enemy was doing, and I was preaching against it, man. I was going hardcore against it, and that's when the churches started shutting down. Yeah. And the enemy was able to shut churches down, put fear in pastors, put fear in people afraid to come together, people afraid to touch each other, hug, whatever. The enemy was able to do all of that because they had done those rituals to usher in that spirit. And so now we're seeing, you know, the result of not only the Oshan ritual she did on the Grammys, but just all of the rituals, including BLM, Antifa, all of that. We're seeing it now. The church, a lot of churches can't even get back to normal.
Right.
And that was the devil's plan, to attack God's church.
Why do you think believers have a hard time believing this message? I'm not talking about unbelievers. They're not going to believe. But believers have a hard time embracing this message. Again, you're using the word. You're not being philosophical. You're saying this, and this is what the word says. Why do believers have a hard time accepting it? And
yeah, you know, offenses. The Bible said, you know, in the end time, many will be offended. They shall hate one another. They shall betray one another. And he's talking about the church. People, Christians, are so offended. They didn't have the life they wanted. They didn't grow up the way they wanted. Or they saw flaws in their parents who say they were Christians. Or their parents divorced and said they were Christians, or just whatever. And it created offenses in them. And the devil now is promoting their offenses with the internet and, you know, social media, all of that. They're getting an opportunity to voice their offenses to the point to where they forget the truth, and they'll begin to shun the very thing that can help them because their offense is speaking louder. It's, you know, their lives are driven by their emotions. And so if you're very, very emotional, it's hard for you to receive the logic of God. It's the opposite. You know, logic is the opposite of emotions. And God's word is his logos, which is logic. And so, man, if you're on an emotional, you know, heavy, emotional, offensive kind of person, if you're like that, it's just hard for you to sit down and really receive truth. You know?
So I'll say to you, in the book of Isaiah, I believe it's like the 20th chapter, where they're crying out to the watchman to tell us what you see. So I'm saying that to you. Watchman, what of the night? What do you see?
You mean in the future?
In the future.
I see Jesus coming back real soon. And I see people that thought they would be ready, not ready.
Wow.
You know, God gave me a dream a couple of years ago. I think I shared it with the church. I think I shared it on Instagram, matter of fact, where I was riding down this freeway, 820. They've been working on this freeway since I was a kid. So I don't know if they're going to ever finish it. So I thought the Lord was showing me what's going to happen with that freeway. God, are they going to ever finish it? First, let's start there. But this freeway, I was riding down this freeway, I had my family in the car, and we were riding, and they had closed the left lane because there was just nothing but dead bodies. All the way, all you could see were dead bodies just laying almost on top of each other, and they were all dressed for church. Suits and stockings and, you know, just nice dresses, hats, all of the church stuff. Ushers with gloves, just everything, all down. And so I was driving, and my wife was with me, and she was like, "Don't go over there to the left. You'll hit those people." And I was like, "They're all dead." It's like all the church people were just laying there, just dead. It was like, "Well, where are we going?" And there was an exit in the right lane, and the Holy Spirit just kept telling me, "Stay right, stay right, stay right." And I took that exit and got off that road, and I woke up, and I felt like God was showing me that people were dressed like they were prepared, and they looked like they were ready, but they weren't ready.
Wow.
They were left.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Powerful. Well, thanks for allowing me to conduct this interview with you. I know I certainly appreciate it. And again, the Truth Behind Hip Hop Rewind, October 28th. You don't want to miss it. Any parting words, Pastor, you'd like to share?
Just come out to that, and you know, if you just can't get there, the video will be out probably a month or so after it. But it's going to be a powerful night to just go back through all that God has shown and I'm excited about it. Can't wait.
Right. Well, we're excited about it and can't wait. And we certainly hope to see you there.
The music has now begun to openly promote the devil, the denouncement of God, the hatred of family, and even the desire for hell as a dwelling. Music can be played into your mind. It can go into the mind of a man, disturb his conscience without his consent.
You're watching The Box, music television you control.
The devil uses hip-hop culture to change you so that he can reclaim his place that he once had in heaven. Because these spirits were worshipped as Nephilim, they are looking for a body to be worshipped as a Nephilim.
I said I pop it like a thotty, pop it like a thotty. You said I drop it like a thotty, drop it like a thotty. Church girls acting loose, church girls acting loose, church girls acting loose, bad girl acting snotty.
Celebrating evil or celebrating debauchery, celebrating what is not good became something that the enemy is now famous for. Using the influence in music to cause us to worship false gods and have human idols in our heart.